Hi, this is Julie with Beadaholique, and I have a wire beading project for you today. So this is an earring. We're going to make the matched one to it. And this is a great project if maybe you've been wanting to get into wire wrapping and wire working a little bit more with your jewelry making and want a great kind of intermediate project, kind of on the beginner side, but where you're going to make your own paddle head pins, you're going to make your actual finding, and the only thing that's pre-made for you is the actual earring hook. So this is a great way of really getting started with wire working and jewelry making. So for the wire itself, we're going to be using craft wire. It's 20 gauge. And we're going to have a little earring hook that's pre-made. And then for the beads, I'm using these pretty seed beads that have really an old world feel to them. So if this is the blue here that I'm going to be using. Let me pull it forward. So you see it's a Czech glass size 6/0 seed bead and has a really pretty finish on it. We're also going to be using these tube beads as well in the red. Now, I did pull out some other colors of these seed beads just because I think they're really pretty. They've got a very vintage, antique look to them, even though they are new. So let's go ahead and review our tools, and then we're going to begin. So like most wire projects, you have fewer actual supplies than the tools. You end up needing a few more tools, but fewer supplies. So we've got the two types of beads. We've got the wire and the earring hook, and that's all we're going to need for jewelry making supplies. Now for tools, you're going to need a bench block, some type of dowel. Now the one I'm using, if I put it on my ruler, is 1 inch across. So you might even have a pill bottle or something like that at home that you can use. You're going to need a round nose plier, a cutter, a chain nose plier, a ruler, and a hammer, and I'm using a chasing hammer, which is one of my favorite hammers for metalworking and wire wrapping. So let's go ahead and begin. So you see here that we've got these little paddle head pins that we created, and you're going to notice that they are all uneven, and I did that on purpose. I didn't want this to be a completely uniform piece. So to create that uneven look, you have to just kind of let yourself be a little freer and not measure everything out, which if you're a person like me, sometimes that's hard. It's a little easier to have everything precisely measured, but we're going to cut 7 lengths that are somewhere around 1 inch each. Okay, so there we've got the 7, and we're going to create the paddle head pin part of them first. And to do that, lay it on your bench block, hold it in place, and you're going to tap the end with your chasing hammer. And you see that it starts to flatten, and you're going to keep doing that. Okay, so there we have a paddle head pin. And to also create some variation, I want to also vary the length of that paddle. So say on this one here, I'm going to walk up my hammering a little bit more towards my finger so it's a longer paddle. Okay, so you see how that one now is just a little bit longer. This one, maybe I'll make a little shorter. Okay, there we go. And it's important to get those paddles nice and flat because these are head pins. You want the bead to stop so it doesn't just go right off the wire. So what we're going to do is we're going to put one of our size 6/0 seed beads on and let it just scoot down so it rests at the base near the paddle. And then we're going to put on another little tube bead. And then at this point here in this earring, you can see that I made all my loops pretty close to the end of the tube bead. So I can tell I have a little bit too much wire here. So I'm just going to trim it a little bit. And I'm just going to make some wrapped wire loops here. A little tricky when you get in there with a shorter amount of wire. And then just trim where it crisscrosses, and then take your chain nose and just straighten it up. Okay, same thing. And actually it's easier if you don't trim that wire first. There you go. Now you'll notice with these seed beads, they are Czech glass, so there's some variation in size and also in the finish, which is nice. So I actually want another one that's a little bit bigger. Well, and that one came right off my paddle head pin. So let's go ahead, try to flatten that a little bit more. Okay, now let's see what happens. And it stays put. And it's kind of got that cool organic shape to it too. All right, our little dangles are done. So now we need to go ahead and make the main earring finding itself. To do that, measure out 5 inches of your craft wire. Same gauge as before. You're gonna wanna find the midway point, so you can either lay it on here and find the middle, or you can eyeball it. So here's the middle. Bring your 2 halves together to form a V. And then line up your ends, and if there's any unevenness, trim them off so that they're then even. And then you can actually use your chain nose pliers as well to make that V just a little sharper. Now you're going to take your dowel, pull your 2 wires apart, because we're wanting to make this nice, kind of almost like an inverted teardrop. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this around the dowel and push on it so that it really pulls out the sides. So this is what we've got. So we still have that little V right there. And then crisscross your wires over the top side. So that is the shape we now have. And at this point, line it up with your other shape and see if it's approximately the same. If it is a little bit different, you can always squeeze it together. So that looks a little bit better now. Now go ahead, take your pliers, and on one side, this is your round nose plier now. We're just making a little loop. And on the other side, before we do anything else, we're going to slide on all of our dangles. And because we have that little V, they're just going to rest at the base there. So now you can make another little loop on this side. And we're just grabbing the tip of the wire between the 2 noses of our round nose pliers, and we're rotating it. And take our block back, and now we're going to lay our piece on it, and we're going to work harden and flatten the sides a little bit, so it's both decorative and functional. Kind of eyeball it to your original one, see how you're doing. This one is a little bit bigger looking, so just go ahead, pull your ends together. And now at this point, we want to make this little curlicue. To do that, take one side and wrap it around the other side, up and over, and then down. Remember, this is your piece and it is wire. You can do whatever you want with it. So you can make it as perfect or imperfect as you want. So now with this piece, look at the top here, what we did. We got an extra little swirl in there. So to do that, go back, grab your loop, and just bend it on over. Okay. So now we're going to do a little bit more work hardening and flattening. Let me even do this bit right here. Just pound that down so it stays in place. And if you want to shape it at all, go ahead and shape it. And then I can see I want this guy to stand up a little straighter because he's what I'm going to attach my earring hook to. Let's see what we've got here for our little set. So that's looking pretty good. They're looking pretty close, not identical. It's nearly impossible to get completely identical when you're starting out with wire work and jewelry making, so don't beat yourself up if it's not 100% perfect. As you do it more, it will continue to get more uniform. You'll get just more used to how the wire works, but definitely, you know, don't worry too much if it's not 100% identical with like things like earrings and components. It's really part of the charm that it's not. Okay, so let's go ahead and put our earring hook on, and then we're going to have a finished pair of earrings. And you can decide if you want both loops to face the same direction or a different direction, whatever you like. And we're done. We've finished our little pair of wire wrapped earrings using these really fun old world looking seed beads and tube beads. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. We have others involving wire wrapping techniques and more at beadaholique.com.